In this video, I'm gonna show you how to use an image as a reference while you do the NURBS modeling, and also apply the revolve command in order to make your model pretty fast. So in this case, we are gonna create a chess piece. So in order to, in general, to create a model based on an image reference, you need to go to the view that you want. Normally we work in the perspective, but every single view has these options: the view, shading, lighting, show. And in this case, I'm gonna search for an image. I search chess piece and I do it based on the front view. So it depends. If you do based on the front view, then you have to go to the front view in your Maya. If you do it based on the side view, then you need to work in the side view. So I downloaded this image as a reference, and I'm gonna create this piece based on the image that I have. I go back to the Maya, and since I downloaded something from the front view, I go and find the front view in Maya, and I go to view, and it has the option for image plane, and it has the import image option. So I go and look for the image that I downloaded. So basically, in the other video, I talked about a revolve. Revolve is the command that you create a surface based on your chosen axis, and it means you don't need to trace the whole shape that you have. You do it like only based on the one side, and after that, which we will do it based on the basically y-axis, and then we will revolve around that axis and create the shape. So what I do, I just started from one half of my image. I'm gonna do that from this part, and I'm not gonna be really picky about the accuracy. So yeah, it's like pretty much one side, one half of the shape. And right now I press enter in order to complete my curve. One thing that you need to pay attention, so I go back to the perspective mode, and I need to make sure that I center the pivots that I have in order to create the right revolve. So basically the pivot is the anchor that we are going to revolve around it. So if you don't put it in the right uh, position, basically you will, like every time that you move your anchor or your pivot and revolve it, you will get different results. So you need to pay attention. If you see that you don't get the right result that you want, it means you need to play around with your anchor. And what you can do, the short key is D. If you hold the D and if you move your pivot, basically you can place it anywhere that you want. But I'm gonna go from the poly modeling and make it like center. I center the pivot, but we don't want to the pivot be on this corner, because I'm sure that I don't get the right result. So I'm gonna like put my hold the D and I move my anchor and I put it somehow like in the middle of the shape that I have. So right now, if I am, and I'm in the perspective mode as you see, but I created the trace in the front mode, front view. So right now, if I go back to the surface and click on the revolve, this is what you get, like exactly similar to what I have, only there is one problem, which is the faces are reversed and I need to fix that part. So I go back, I talked about it already before, so I go to the surface and it has the option to reverse direction, and right now you can center the pivot here. And now if I get rid of my reference, I can hide it with edge, even like delete the curve. Right now I have the chess piece. In this video, I'm gonna show you another technique to work with some of the non-linear deform like twist and bend, and also work with mesh in Maya. This is the mesh panel, which is like it's a word for itself. So in order to do that, I'm gonna choose cylinder. I create a cylinder. So it's definitely so many factors to make your shape look different. What you do probably will look different than what I make because it depends on the size of the cylinder that you do based on other attribute that you added. So I won't give you the exact number because I want you to have that freedom to play around and like get different results. Um, but there's something that you need to keep in your mind. For example, for this one, I create that cylinder. All the process that I do, you can continue with this cylinder that I created, but I'm gonna make some changes and you can do it for yourself as well. So I press T, which brings the subdivisions for me. So I'm gonna get rid of the subdivision axis and I'm gonna make it like a triangle shape, and I don't need anything for the cap. And for the height, I will increase the height. Also, if I want to do another subdivision for the y-axis, it's not gonna work. If I increase it, the shape is changing. So instead, what I can do, I talked about insert edge loop before. You can create insert edge loop without changing the shape of this triangle look cylinder that I created. So I go to the mesh tool and it has the option for insert edge loop. What I did, so you can basically reset it. What I did, I can choose multiple edge loop as well, and I put it 3 here. So now when I click on that horizontal line, it creates, as I told you, it creates the opposite subdivisions for me, which I wanted for the vertical. Now each side I created 3 subdivisions. So this is another thing that you can know or learn about insert edge loop, that you can have the multiple edge loop. And keep it in your mind, if you leave it like this, the tool is gonna be with 3 edge loops. So instead, if you don't like it, make sure to reset your tool. So right now I have this shape, and I go back to the object mode, and I go and under the deform there is an option nonlinear. Don't be confused with this nonlinear as well. I'm talking about the first one. So under nonlinear you can see the twist and bend. So we are going to work with the twist and bend. You can click on this option box and open it, but I'm going to click it here, and I have the option from the attribute editor to make changes in the twist as well. That's a similar thing with that option compared to that option box. So I'm gonna twist it, and again it's up to you which form that you twist it. I think this is the form that I like. And make sure when you did these changes, so you see that like green line, this is part of the history and you made these changes through this line. You can make the changes again if you want, but if I get rid of it, I'm not able to re-edit it anymore. So since I'm happy with it, I select my mesh and I go to edit, delete by type, history, and now I don't see that line anymore. So the other deform function that I'm gonna add is bend. So I click on the band, I go to the attribute editor, I can change the curvature. So yeah, I could definitely twist it more and I get like more interesting result, but it works for the demo. And you can also see, you can rotate it and like change your band a little bit. Again, I select the mesh and I go to edit, delete by type history. So right now I can apply a texture as well, just like a color. I don't want to create a mesh for this one. I'm gonna create another mesh, and with the mesh, I'm gonna basically distribute it around this object. So I'll create any shape that I want. I'm gonna choose the sphere and click that sphere here, and I will add a shader as well close to my other shape that I have. So based on the size of the other mesh that you have, you will get different result in your mesh. So I'm gonna make it really small, because most of the time when you make it really small, you get more interesting result. And now I'm gonna create a mesh from this sphere. I go to the mesh menu, click on it. Basically you see it created like duplication of this mesh for me, and right now it's by default it's 10. So don't worry about the number here. The distribution type, make it mesh, and for the method, make it vertex. You can play around with other options and see like if you make those changes what you will get. So right now you see it has under the distribute, it has the input mesh because you choose like the mesh. You need to connect your cylinder that you made changes in it as your input mesh. So what I do, I click, I with the middle mouse, I click on the cylinder and I drag and drop it here. Make sure you can do it with the middle mouse button. And now choose the flood mesh. So what is happening here, you can see basically I distributed all around my mesh. This is just like some technique. You can definitely do a lot of things with mesh. You can have different shapes. You can also like have a like copy of the same shape that you have and then create a mesh for that one and distribute it again around the same shape and play around with different texture shapes. It's just like there are so many abstract forms you can create simply with mesh. Also, there is similar to NURBS, you can have an image as a reference in polygon modeling and trace the image. You need to make sure if you want to do it with polygons, you need to have it from different angles in different viewports. For example, if I go to Google and look for airplane, this is not a bad one. This is a really simple reference from the top view, but this is working. I can show you this one from the view. Image plane, same thing that I explained for NURBS. You can import the image, and so I'm gonna use the airplane, the really basic shape, basic reference image, but it introduces you enough to the world of modeling based on the reference image for polygon modeling. So one thing, when you import your image, you need to make sure, because you don't want to just like touch this image accidentally or just like delete it. First thing is that put it like on the center. And this is not the perfect symmetrical form, but that's okay. We are gonna create one side based on the tracing and then mirror the other side. So you go from the layer editor, which is like channel box or layer editor, select your image plane and create a new layer. This layer, and this is the new one. I'm gonna rename it like image reference, and instead of display type normal, make it reference. So what it does, basically it locks the layer for you and you don't like you don't touch it accidentally. It's just like locked. So what you need to do, as I mentioned, based on this technique that I'm showing you, as I told you before, you can do it based on the extrude and like change of the scale or change of the size as well. But in this case, the easy one is like create polygon tool. So I hold the shift right click to see that marking menu. And right now I can, like curves, I can start tracing my shape. It's like a pen tool if you have used it before in Photoshop or Illustrator. These are going to be the points that you can later edit it to, like a vertices. So as I mentioned, if you hold the X and click, also you can click on the grid, snap to grid. So I press enter, I go back to the perspective view, and you see that I created the plane based on the image reference. So I can get rid of the image reference. I'm gonna hide it for now. So what you can do, you can go to the mesh and mirror and mirror is, or if you think like sometimes mirror is confusing, you can go and if you duplicate a special, reset it, and I make the scale -1, I apply it for the x-axis, it creates that basically mirror copy of one side for me, and I just like move it a little bit, and this is what I get. So with multi-cut tool, you can just like connect different parts together. You know how the multi-cut tool works at this point. It's better to create quads instead of triangles. So anyway, you can start adding these details. I don't want to make the tutorial much longer. It's like the whole point is that like add more details, then you will definitely have more control over what you do. And with the command E, I can increase the thickness of my shape. So keep it in your mind, you need to work a lot in order to get to the refined good shapes that you want, or the models that you want. um, this is one way. There are tons of different ways that you can take a look at different resources and know how you can do based on the image reference, how you can do the modeling based on the image reference. And also what you can do, you can just like create the forms, and then with the sculpting tools you can definitely work on the edges. And but anyway, you can work with the sculpting tools on the edges of your surface and make it more smoother, or make it closer to something which looks better.